All right, Dalton, next up in our preview is the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Back-to-back 9-4 seasons, and then they took a step back last year with a 6-7 record, winning the Quick Lane Bowl, though, ending out the season on a high. But the biggest culprit for why Minnesota took a step back was that they could not get anything going with their passing game. They had the 6th worst offense in the Power 5 in terms of EPA per pass. Now, they do add a new quarterback in Max Brosmer from New Hampshire, but they'll need some receivers to step up in order to ease his transition to the FBS, right? He's an FCS quarterback, let alone the Big Ten. He's a guy moving up to the FBS level and, of course, the Power 4 level, and one of the best conferences in America as well. He should have a really good run game to help out as well, which I think is going to be their biggest strength of this team is their run game, honestly, with Darius Taylor, Jordan Newbin as well. Taylor, I think, is a rising star, man. Last year, he was second among true freshmen with 800 rushing yards. So he's a really, really good player. Golden Gophers also added Ohio running back C.A. Bangura and Oklahoma's Marcus Major from the transfer portal, and they each earned 70-plus rushing grades last year. Also, they bring back 4 starting offensive linemen after having a top 40 run blocking grade in the country at 68. And one of those returning starters is a guy we'll talk about in a little bit, Ariante Ursary, left tackle. He is the best run blocker in college football, in my opinion. So he's one of the top 10 tackles in the country. Again, we're going to talk about him in a little bit as well. But their run game should be really good. The weakness is going to be the passing game. And they need some players to step up in the passing attack, namely Max Brosmer, the new quarterback. 79.9 passing grade last year, Dawn, and I'm sure you're going to break him down in just a second. But that's solid. But again, that's solid in the FCS level. What's it going to look like in the Big Ten, right? And Daniel Jackson is the number 1 receiver. He's actually a pretty good number 1 receiver, I think. But other than that, they were 109th in receiving grade last year. And only 3 of their pass catchers had 100-plus receiving yards last year. And Daniel Jackson is the only one of them that's coming back to school. So there's a lot of question marks at quarterback, a lot of question marks at receiver as well. But talking about the new quarterback, Dalton, Max Brosmer, you were an absolute sicko and dove into the New Hampshire tape for us. That way you could tell us about this new quarterback from Minnesota. So when you were watching the New Hampshire tape, what did you see?
You see a guy, first of all, look, he led all FCS QBs in passing in the regular season last year. And you saw some flashes of some really good moments, right? Like they got into a really fun shootout that they just barely lost to Central Michigan. Big upset over U-Albany, who was a Final Four team in the FCS last year and arguably the best defense in the entire FCS. Like there are some moments he's really good at targeting teams down the seams into the post, right? Like deep over the middle of the field, targeting slot receivers and tight ends. Doesn't throw outside the numbers as much, but he's kind of your prototypical pocket passer who's going to attack down the seams. I think he's going to really fit in with the play action game in Minnesota here. The biggest thing is just, in the drop back game and throwing horizontal balls, kind of fitting the ball through zone windows, right? Like sometimes he just doesn't see that second defender coming, or if he needs to be on the move and his feet aren't set when he's throwing, then he's got an issue. Like he's not a guy you want to improvise, but I think it's perfectly reasonable to think that he could mix in deep shots with the run game, with the play action. I don't think he's a super high volume passer at the FBS level. Like 25 throws or less per game would be really ideal, especially with their running game, but he can do some things, especially if they're trying to pull safeties in with the run game and get it over the top of them. I think he can absolutely do that. And one of the big benefits he has, as you mentioned, Ariante Ursary. You got that big monster. I'm sure a lot of people will think back to Daniel Faalele, who's with the Ravens now. This is a guy just, needs some work in the pass pro technique. But, other than a couple of blow-ups, he'll give you some good work. And in the run game, he's just monstrous, man. He's just mauling people, right? So when you talk about Ursary, their run game, and then the play action working off of it with Brosmer, I think he can absolutely succeed at this level. They just have to support him the right way, call plays the proper way, and really get this run game going behind Ursary and these running backs. I mean, it's the same way we see Minnesota try to win all the time. We've seen it for years, but it's a physical brand of football. If Brosmer can give them just that deep threat over the top and take the safeties out of the box, then I think Minnesota's got something rolling a little bit on offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk about Ursary a little bit more right now. He had the 3rd best run blocking grade in the country last year. Only Talisa Fuanga and Joe Alt had higher grades. Those two were top 15 picks in the NFL draft. He also was really dominant on zone runs, 89.9 run blocking grade on zone runs. That was 4th in the country. Now, he is inconsistent. There are some games, like you mentioned, that were terrible in pass pro. They lost some games that are pretty good. And actually, one of those games that was pretty good, Dalton, was against Ohio State, surprisingly, with Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, two of our best edge defenders in the country. He only allowed one pressure on 23 pass blocking snaps against Ohio State. So he's got some high highs in pass pro as well. He's the best run blocker in the country, in our opinion, and is a top 10 returning offensive tackle in college football as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And defensively, they've got a guy who's really good in the trenches, too. And that's their best pass rusher, Jaw Joyner, man. The 10th best pass rush grade in the country at a 90.8. This guy gives you prototypical edge player size at 6'5" and 265. He's a really good athlete. Needs to work on his technique in the run game for sure. But when you've got a pass rusher like this, and obviously, you talk about the run game, Minnesota's going to want to play from in front. But when they're playing from in front and you've got this guy rushing the passer, you're going to have some problems in the backfield because he's a big dude who can really get after it in the pass rush. Again, if he fixes up his run defense, this could be a guy who shoots up draft boards come next year's draft. Jaw Joyner is a really good pass rusher, and if Minnesota gets ahead, you better look out for him.
He's one of my favorite sleepers, dude, in the NFL draft next year. And one of my favorite sleepers in college football, too, is third best pass rush win rate in the country. And only Laiatu Latu had a higher pass rush win rate among Power 5 edge defenders as well. So really bad run defender right now, 49.7 run defense grade last year, which was the fifth worst in the Power 5 for edge defenders. But you mentioned it, man, that pass rushing ability and a great athlete as well, 97th percentile gas score. He's going to be a really, really fun player to watch next year. What is the bottom line for this Minnesota team right now, Dalton? Will they bounce back and get back to like the 9-4 level that they were in 2021 and 2022, or is it more like a 6-7 team that we saw this past season?
I think there's a chance. I think obviously that's kind of the range. I think they should expect to make a bowl game for sure. I think you've got enough run game, you've got enough defense. I know you lost Tyler Nubin on the back end, but they're still pretty good in the trenches, right? And I think, the X factor, of course, is Brosmer. If he can give them enough in the passing game, like last year, they really struggled with Ethan Kalikmanis trying to throw the football. It just wasn't working, right? Their passing game, you mentioned it at the top. Like they've certainly leaned more towards the run than the pass. But I think they should expect to make a bowl game. I think they could certainly be, if they execute everything properly, a little bit better than that. I certainly wouldn't put them in playoff contention considering how loaded the Big Ten is at the top. But I think as usual, look, PJ Fleck's going to put a good outfit out there, right? And they're going to be physical. They're still that Big Ten West cold weather physical team. So they're going to give themselves a chance every week. And if they get better quarterback play than they did last year with Brosmer in there instead of Kalikmanis, then, they could really surprise some people, win a few more games than you think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that right now I'd say they're probably going to be like around 6-6 team as of right now. But if Max Brosmer can find as much success as he did at the FCS level, I think they could definitely be better than that. But if not, and I think he'll be about average or so, then I think they're going to probably struggling to make a bowl game and right around the 6-6 mark, I think, for Minnesota next year. But that's what we got for our preview of the Minnesota Golden Gophers heading into 2024. Again, we're doing this for every one of the 70 Power 5 teams. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single one.